Good evening, everybody. Hold on, let's get ready. See who's around. How you doing? You alright? Hello, everybody. Smiley here. It's Wednesday night and it's Mental Health Awareness Week. So I thought I would come online tonight and talk about mental health, because I think it's really good that we all talk about it and we share and we make it okay, because lots of us have it. So the stats are 1 in 4 people struggle with mental health, but I actually think that at some point in our lives we've all struggled with it. So welcome. If you're just joining us, feel free to say hello. If you're watching the replay, you can still type questions in and I'll answer them. I'm going to chat through a few things tonight that I think will help you, and then if you've got questions to ask me afterwards, then please do so. And if there are questions that you feel that you can't ask me in a public forum, then email me, lisa@smileyforlife.com, because I don't want anyone struggling with this stuff on their own. And that's a symptom of mental health, really. We kind of shut down and there can be shame around it, and there's still a stigma, and then people just battle on. And that's not the answer. You need to reach out, and I'm guilty of that. I'm very guilty of that when I feel that I'm waging a war in my head. I don't want to impose myself on anyone. You know, I don't feel like I want to be around people. But you know, there's no shame. There's no shame in it. So what is mental health? Your mental health is, I've written down here, it's anything to do with your mental, emotional and psychological well-being. And as you may know, this week for Mental Health Awareness Week, the Royal Family have teamed up with some big celebrities to talk about sharing, to talk about how you feel and reach out. And actually by sharing, if you don't make it about you and you say you're sharing because, you know, you might be reaching out to someone else and saying me too and connecting in empathy. And when people feel like they're not the only ones that have got it, that really helps, doesn't it? So that's amazing. So you can help too. You can look around you, and I reckon that you probably do know someone that suffers with mental health. Maybe you do, but you can look around them and you can see them struggling, and maybe you can help them. You can help them. So obviously I see it in my work all the time with children. It's mostly showing up as anxiety and depression. And as I was saying earlier, the stats are 1 in 4 of us struggle with mental health issues. But I'm telling you, I think we all do. I don't think it's 1 in 4. I think every single one of us struggles at some point in our life with mental, emotional or psychological problems. And I'll tell you why I think that. Because I think that we're all human beings and we underestimate how sensitive we are and how this stuff affects us. It does. There's a lot of trauma in our lives, whether that be at the beginning of our lives or whether that's now as adults. There's a lot of trauma, and if we don't process that trauma and we don't deal with it in a healthy way, we don't take it to a professional, we don't find a way to heal from it, then it stays dormant, and we don't always remember trauma up here. We remember, our body remembers it. Which is why, guys, when I talk about being triggered, when you're triggered by your kids and your reaction to the way they're behaving is disproportionate to what they've done, i.e. it's, you know, it's bigger than it should be, it's because there's a trauma in here that it feels familiar and it's in your body, and you're acting out from the trauma in here, not from what's going on with your child. Which is why I really believe that all of us need to look at what happened to us when we were growing up and understand it and heal from that. So that's really important. So, you know, we're not made as humans to thrive in this really crazy, busy world. Hi Elaine, thanks for joining us. And you know, the theme of the campaign this year for 2018 is thriving or surviving. And you know, we can't change the world that we're bringing our kids up in, although we are contributing to it. But what we can do, our point of power, is what are we in control of? And I guess it's how we support them, and I guess it's about creating the right environment for them to thrive in. But if you're struggling with your mental health and you're struggling with managing the environment around you, you've got to remember that your children sit in that energy. And I'm not making you wrong, but I'm saying if that is you, then what stops you reaching out and asking for help? And there's this stigma, isn't there, attached to feeling, you know, like you can't cope. It pushes on our not good enough buttons. But none of us can do it all, be it all, say it all, have it all, know it all. It's not possible. It's kind of verging on being a perfectionist, isn't it? And thinking you have to show up in a certain way, and you don't. You know, it's safe for you to get it wrong. It's safe for you not to know. It's okay if you wake up one day and the way I suppose if I'm going to be speaking from my experience now, because I can't say what it's like for other people, but I'm happy to share my experience, is that for me, mental health shows up as not being safe. So it shows up as anxiety. So it's hard for me to sleep sometimes. Sometimes it's can be difficult for me to leave the house, if I'm honest, when it gets really bad. Feeling very unsafe and wanting to protect myself and hide under the blanket. I'm very tired, but I don't sleep. My mind is racing. I feel panicky. Yeah. So if that's you, you know, and I have in the past for my mental health issues taken medication at one time, but I actually don't think for me personally, that's the right thing to do, because I think if you don't get to the underlying cause of why you are where you are, then it's just kind of like papering over the cracks. So at times you do need to take meds because they, you know, they kind of prop you up and they help you to be at a certain point for those of you that are taking them. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, I don't think you want to become dependent on those. I think you want to find other healthier coping mechanisms. And as I get into my talk and I tell you what I think you need, and you might recognise that you don't have those things, that does cause a lot of anxiety and stress. And it's about managing that stress, isn't it? And everyone's going to have different ways of coping with it. And so there's no right or wrong here, because everyone's experience is different. And a lot of the time I do speak from my experience, I want to say that, but I'm not saying it's like that for you. So, but sometimes it's good to just kind of say it's like this for me, because then other people go, oh crikey, yeah, it's like that for me as well. So I want you to know that I get it. So tonight I want to talk to you about 5 things that I think your child needs, or maybe you need, to thrive in this really stressful, busy life. Number 1 is, we call it self-soothing in coaching or in therapy world. And self-soothing is about being able to regulate your emotions and being able to find healthy coping mechanisms when it gets too much. So that can be any emotions. And the thing is, you've got to be connected to your emotions, and you've got to understand them so that you can regulate them. And it's also about being able to sit with them when they feel really uncomfortable and not act out on them, not react. So you can come from a place of responding. But like I said earlier, if you've got triggers, you've got trauma in your body that hasn't been addressed, you're very likely going to be acting out from them a lot of the time. So you've got to, if you can sit with them, that's a sign that you're quite emotionally intelligent, and you can self-soothe because you know what you need. Whereas if you can't sit with them and you start finger pointing and blaming other people and shouting and getting into rows with people, I used to do that a lot. I do sometimes. But it's about having that self-awareness, isn't it? So knowing how to self-soothe. Otherwise, what happens is, and I see this with children a lot, builds up inside of them. And imagine they've got like an emotional backpack that they carry around. If they keep stuffing feelings in it and they haven't got healthy coping mechanisms, at some point the wheels are going to come off and they're going to explode, aren't they? So that's why they need to be able to self-soothe. Self-soothing comes from you role modelling good self-soothing, but it also comes from you being securely attached to them and knowing that they can trust you and come to you with any of their feelings. So if in your house you struggle with certain feelings, I'm thinking of anger particularly now, because I see that a lot. You know, parents get triggered by their children's anger, probably because they had a tyrant or an angry parent or a raging parent, and then they don't know how to hold the space and they don't know how to help their child with those feelings. So obviously ways of self-soothing can be anything from like getting fresh air and exercising, to taking a bath, to talking about how you feel, to having a hug with someone, and to be able to listen and connect. even just having a cup of tea, maybe doing a bit of journaling. I turn to my my angel cards, which is why I created the Smiley Thought cards for the kids, as a as a way of being able to reconnect with myself. So that's number one, self-soothing. Really, really important, because if you don't know how to regulate and self-soothe your feelings, and that includes anxiety and worry, that is eventually going to spiral into not a very good place, isn't it? So some things that I've got that can help you with that are my energy pod on a Monday, where I'm teaching the kids and the mums to learn how to deal with their emotions. My podcast, Truly Madly Smiley, which you can find on the website. That's more for children. So that's me storytelling about my experience of growing up. So that's coming from a place of empathy and saying, me too, I get it, because you need someone to understand you when you feel like that. You don't want to be told whether you're right or wrong, or whether you're rude or cheeky or whatever. You just want someone to understand how you feel. And children don't always understand how they feel, so they need you to help them with that. They get stuck with it. And then there's a self-study pack in the online learning den called How to Tame Your Angry Dragon. That's a really good one. And it's not just for angry feelings, it's for all feelings. But there's a little pack in there, I think it's £45, that you can watch and do at home together as a family. So that's your first one. Your second one is, you've got to know how to set boundaries. Oh, it's my favourite word. I know I go on about boundaries all the time. I'm still finding my way with them. I'm still learning. So I want to ask you now, how do you think your boundaries are? What are your boundaries like? You cannot manage stress if you don't have boundaries. And by that, I mean, you can't say no to people. You can't say no to people. And when you have boundaries, you know what is right for you. So you know where you start and you stop and the other person starts. So you don't take on their feelings. You don't get guilted by their reaction to you. You're able to say, no, this doesn't feel right for me, or I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'd love to help you. What's the line from Friends that Phoebe says? I'd love to, but I'm not going to. Or I love to, but I don't want to, or whatever it is she says. But you've got to understand what boundaries are. And signs of poor boundaries are lots of children who feel unsafe and who have like anxiety don't have good boundaries. And children who are angry are often being controlled. Being controlled is not the same as having healthy boundaries. You don't actually need to control your child at all when you've got healthy boundaries. They're very, very different things. I wish I could, but I don't want to. That's it, Nikki. I wish I could, but I don't want to. Always remember that line. But there's ways of saying no without actually saying no, isn't there? Yes, I'd really love to do that, but I can't do it today, so you'll have to ask someone else. Didn't say no at all in that sentence. Sounds like you need some help with that. I'm sorry, I'm not the right person for you. You know, you can just say it in other ways. I think the things to ask yourself there are, when you're in conflict with someone or you're triggered, do you try and control the other person? Do you need them to change? Or do you look to yourself and think, what can I do about this situation? So if your kid is acting out, are you trying to control them and shut them down? Or are you looking at yourself and thinking, how am I responding to this behaviour and is this helpful? Which way do you look at it? If you've got boundaries, you bring it back to you because you know where your boundaries are. If you're projecting outwards and you need your child to change their behaviour, or you need your child to do something, you need the other person to do something, then you haven't got boundaries. You're not in control of the other person, are you? I forget that sometimes. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. Because when you're triggered and you feel afraid, you want to control things. But you can't control some things, only yourself. Does that make sense? So things that I've got that can help you with boundaries. There's a really good blog post, smileyforlife.com/boundaries. There's also a really good blog post to teach your children how to set boundaries, because if your children don't have boundaries, they will be prime targets for bullying. And when they get older, they might date the wrong type of person who could be aggressive or abusive. If you don't have boundaries, you know, you're kind of walking around wide open like that. So there's another blog post, smileyforlife.com/keep-me-safe. I'll put all these in the comments afterwards. There's quite a lot of links and helpful things along the way, and I don't want you to get overwhelmed. So what I will suggest at the end is that you pick the one of the 5 that's resonating with you the most, so the one that's going to help you the most, because you're not going to be able to, you're going to be like, oh, what's she talking about? This just sounds like it's too much for me to deal with. There is also a course, so another self-study pack in the online learning den called No More Power Struggles. Because when you get into power struggles with your child, there's some element of control going on between the two of you, and there's no boundaries in that situation. So you need to take your power back by learning to set healthy boundaries with your child. And with certain children who are strong-willed, you need to learn how to set them with empathy, because otherwise you're just going to get into arguments with them all the time. So that's number 2. Put your thumbs up if I'm making sense so far. And if hearing this is helpful to you, it's not about highlighting all the things that you haven't got, haven't done, don't know. It's to create awareness of the things that are important, and it's also to educate and inform, because, you know, that's part of my job, and that's part of Mental Health Awareness Week, to educate and inform people and to make this stuff okay. So we don't have to be perfect and we don't have to know it all. Okay, awesome, thank you. So the third one is intuition. So this is a funny one, because for the children, I call their intuition their wise owl or their inner knowing. And I don't know how much you are connected to your mum's intuition, how much you listen to yourself. But children who are not connected to their feelings and don't listen to themselves won't be able to set boundaries. They won't know what's right for them. You know, it's that little voice inside of you when you meet someone and there's no evidence to suggest that they're a bit shady, but something inside of you goes, uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. And then because you don't want to be horrible, you think, oh, be nice, don't listen to the voice, and you push it aside. And then you get to know this person a bit better, and then a bit further down the line you think, oh my God, this person's not being very nice. Well, I didn't think that one. Why didn't I listen to my voice? And your children need that voice. That is the voice that will keep them safe when you're not there. So if you're cutting them off from their feelings, and you won't be doing it on purpose, but if you're shutting down their feelings and you're telling them how they think and telling them how they feel, and you're not letting them tune in and listen to themselves, and this is what we do in the energy pod, then when you're not there, what are they going to do? And that's kind of what authoritarian parenting breeds, because it's a do as I say, and it's all coming from commands, and you must do this, otherwise I'm going to take your iPad away. Well, how do they know that's the right thing to do? It's because you've told them, but they need to be motivated internally. They need to go, that doesn't feel very nice when I hit my brother, so I'm not going to do that again. They need to, so instead of scolding them and making them wrong, it's better to sort of go within and say, until you hit your brother there, he must have been really angry. I'm doing a really insincere voice now, but just scripting it out. What did that feel like? How are you feeling now? Did that feel good? Okay, it didn't feel good. What are your choices? What can you do next time? So there's no judgment. There's no right or wrong when it comes to listening to their feelings. Because when we start getting into the right or wrong, we get into the blame game. And the blame game is very, very dangerous. Because that means in a family that someone is always the fool guy and it's always their fault. So, and I think the thing is to really listen to what they're telling you when they're acting out. So they're not using their words or their language to express to you how they're feeling. But if they're acting out, so think about little Prince George at the moment. He's just got a new baby brother. So he's now had 2 younger siblings come along. It'd be quite normal for him to feel jealous, to feel pushed out, to feel left out. We wouldn't want to shame him for feeling like that, little George. We'd say to him, George, it's really, understanding how you're feeling. You're feeling very jealous about your new brother, aren't you? But I can only let you be with him if you're going to be gentle with him. But if you're jealous, you can come here and sit here with me and tell me all about it. I set a boundary with him, didn't make him wrong, understood how he felt. So, and it is quite tough on eldest children, and I'm speaking as an eldest child, that, they are the first one that you try everything out on when you're still learning to be a parent yourself, probably a bit more relaxed by the time the second one comes along. But the oldest one is going to have those feelings because they've had you all to themselves at some point, and then they have to share you with someone. And you know, children are children. When they're really little, they don't want to share, do they? They want you all to themselves. So it's just being understanding of that. And I have got a really lovely self-study pack, online study pack, which is called How to Really Listen with Love. And that's about the way I listen in my job, which is really takes up quite a lot of energy, actually. It's not just listening to respond. It's really hearing what your child is saying, what your child is not saying, what your child's body language is, what you think your child might be asking you for. All behaviour is communication. All behaviour is communication. So that intuition and that being connected to their feelings is really important. Good? Are we good? So number one, and I'm just going to do a quick recap. Number one, self-soothing. Number two, boundaries. Number three, intuition, be connected to your feelings. Number four, the way you think. Your mindset is everything. Oh, my cards are on the shelf right over there, so I haven't got them with me, my Smiley thought cards. But you want your child to understand, to think in a way that serves them. So not black and white thinking, like things are all good or all bad, or you're right or you're wrong. That's the blaming thing that I talked about earlier. Or catastrophizing, like when something goes wrong. Like the other day, my shower started playing up. And, you know, instead of sort of being pragmatic and thinking, right, let's go and check the pump, let's check the water, let's check everything's switched on, I was like dripping wet in the shower with boiling hot water and no cold water, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to call a plumber. It's going to cost me hundreds of pounds. Blah, 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 blah. That's catastrophic thinking. That's my favourite type of thinking. It's my go-to thinking when everything goes wrong. So you've got to teach them to think in healthy ways, and also to get rid of that mean girl or boy voice in their head, that critical, that inner critic, and to see the best in themselves and to have compassion when it goes wrong, and to have self-empathy and self-compassion, which they will learn from you. If you're kind to yourself, are you kind to yourself when you get it wrong? When things go wrong, how do you approach it? You know, how do you role model healthy repair when you've made mistakes? They're going to be learning that from you. So things that I've got that can help with the thinking. Oh my God, I've got so many things. The energy pod, my Smiley thought cards are really good for positive thinking. I've also got a really good video on my YouTube channel. If you Google it, it's called What to Do When Your Thinking is Stinking. So it highlights some of the unhealthy thinking styles. So that might help you if you feel like that's something that you may do. I think we all struggle with the voice in our heads. And if we didn't have parents who were very nurturing or empathetic, or we had highly critical, perfectionistic parents, or parents that had mental illnesses themselves, or parents that had addictions, then we will struggle with that inner critic, because they would have projected that out onto us, unknowingly, of course. And the last one is emotional resilience, which is bounce back ability. So that's trusting ourselves that when things go wrong, that we've got the internal resources to make it right, to put it right, and to not take things personally, and to learn from our mistakes, really, I suppose, and to learn from disappointments, and to know that life and people will disappoint us. Your kids will disappoint you. They will make decisions that you don't agree with, and you will probably disappoint them. But if they've got emotional resilience and they feel loved by you and you've got a strong connection with them, they can bounce back from that, can't they? So I read a really good quote today on Davina McCall's Instagram page. She said, "I've learned so much from my mistakes, I'm thinking of making a few more." And I thought, yes, Davina, yes, it's safe for me to make mistakes. I'm allowed to get it wrong. So are you. And I've recently written a blog post over on my website, smileyforlife.com/blame game. So that is talking about not taking things personally. When you're a highly sensitive person, you do really feel what is going on around you and for the other person. So it is quite easily for you to be disappointed or feel like you're taking it personally. But again, that's your emotional boundaries. If you've got poor or weak emotional boundaries, you will let that stuff in and you will take it to your heart. And also, if you want to check out your emotional intelligence levels, there is a test on my website, smileyforlife.com/test. so you can test out how emotionally intelligent your family are, and then it identifies the areas for you to work on and improve. And you know, it isn't about being perfect. It isn't about being perfect, because there's lots here to learn, and we're all learning. But I think the point is if you're feeling overwhelmed when you're listening to this, is that the way to break through overwhelm is to take action. So you can feel inspired listening to me and thinking, Smiley, this is great, I hear what you're saying, our kids need this. But if you just then go and sit down and have a cup of tea and put Coronation Street on, or whatever's on now, well, that doesn't mean anything, does it? You've got to take action. And even if you just do one thing, if you think from listening to this, right, I'm going to do this one thing, I'm going to try not to shout, I'm going to do my journaling and sort out my inner critic, I'm going to practice keeping calm, you know, when I'm triggered, whatever it is you decide to do it tomorrow. Say, I'm going to do it as of tomorrow, do it the next day, do it the next day, do it the next day. And in 3 weeks' time, you'll have created a new neural pathway in your brain, and you'll be doing something different. And then you can start trying something else. But the problem is when you get overwhelmed and you just hear it all and go, oh yeah, that's great, and then you don't do anything, there's no change with no action. It doesn't change. So, you know, you're a massive influence on your child's life. They spend most of their time with you. And so the way that you are affects the way that they are. No pressure. So it is really important. And so what one action will you take from listening to tonight? And what is speaking to you the loudest out of those 5 things? And you can trust yourself to know what you need to do next. So if anyone wants to share their thoughts and feedback or actions they might be taking on the chat roll, you can, but obviously you don't have to. So I appreciate this is a public forum and that might not feel comfortable. If anyone's got any questions that you'd like to ask me about mental health for you or for your child, then I will do my best to respond. And if I don't know the answer, I will go away and find out, and I will signpost you accordingly. Yes, or I will try and share something from my personal experience that helps you. But I think I've suffered with mental health for pretty much as long as I can remember. But I obviously didn't realise what was happening to me. So, Elaine says, I still need to work on boundaries here. I'm with you, Elaine. Right by your side, holding your hand, cheering each other on. Got this boundary stuff nailed. Boundaries is huge. Absolutely huge. I wonder what makes it difficult to set boundaries. I wonder what makes it difficult for us to set boundaries. Would like to work on boundaries too. Hi, Sam. Hi, Samantha. Yes. So it's worth thinking about what makes it difficult for us to set boundaries. What stops us from setting boundaries? And I think, first of all, if we don't have good internal boundaries, so we don't know ourselves well enough to go, oh, that's not right for me. We don't have that self-awareness. Because really boundaries are about, you know, knowing ourselves so that we can set them. Nikki says, inner critic for me. Yeah. Inner critic is huge, Nikki. And you've got Smiley thought cards, haven't you? So they're really good for changing the way you think. And also it's about, the tapping's quite good as a pattern interrupter or pinging something. Like when the inner critic pipes up at you, it's about noticing when it starts to talk and saying to it, stop, no. And actually standing up to it and saying, you cannot speak to me like that. You know, it's not okay for you to speak to me like that. And it is about being your own best friend and having compassion and self-empathy and saying to yourself, what is it you actually need? Because it's your little girl you're talking to, really. It's your inner child. It's a little girl. So, is that helpful, guys? I have just literally vomited a shed load of information all over you. And also quite a lot of healthy and helpful links as to where you can go and learn more information about this stuff if you choose to, so that you can do the work. But if you are feeling overwhelmed, you're thinking, crikey, so much to do, don't know where to start, come to the Energy Pod on a Monday. You will love it. It was so good this week. we did the energy of creativity and got them drawing their stories, mums and children, and it was just great. And you know, that's a really good way to work with me, really good way to start working with me and getting to know me, and I can help you, because this stuff is important. And I was reading actually today, because there's been so much stuff about mental health, about the high suicide levels, particularly in boys, because they can't, you know, they can't talk about how they feel. They feel like they have to be roughy-tufty, which is sad, isn't it? And also, you know, making your home environment an environment that is conducive for sharing. So making it safe to share. You know, are you aware of how approachable you are and how you respond to things when your child is in a struggle? Do you feel like you're accepting of where they are and you trusting them to sort it out, or do you make them wrong and try and fix it and put it right? Think how you feel when you're in a struggle, what you need your friend to say to you. Sometimes we don't always want people to fix it. Sometimes we just want people to go, yeah, that's shit, I get it, I get it. Really love the energy pod. Energy pod is great fun. Thank you, guys. It is really good fun. And it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. And I don't always think when we're in the class the children realise the impact it's having on them. But one mum was saying to me the other day that her son actually was struggling with something, and he recognised he was getting angry, and he asked for what he wanted. How amazing is that? So he could actually ask for what he wants. I think that's amazing. It's amazing. Have any of you seen my Smiley giveaway for the kids? Your kids might want to enter the giveaway. There's tons of Smiley stuff, fluffy journals, unicorns, Smiley thought cards, badger balm, Epsom salts, crystals, and stuff to be won. So make sure you enter that. And a quick word about the replays for the Energy Pod. So all the classes for the Energy Pod are recorded, and I sell them for £10, which is the same price as a ticket for the class. But I want to reward the people that are showing up to the live class. So I'm going to leave the price for the replays at £10, but then after the end of May, so starting on the 1st of June, they're going to go up to £15. So if you wanted to order a replay and have a look at the Energy Pod and see what it's like, you need to get it before the 31st of May, before the price goes up, so you can save yourself a few pennies there. Okay. Right, so Elaine says lots of mental health problems in young children is very sad. It is, Elaine, but do you know what, Elaine? I just think that we live in a world where it's just, the world's gone mad. The world has gone mad. It's so fast paced. You know, we're not built as human beings to thrive in that environment. But some of the things I've pointed to you tonight are showing you how you can thrive instead of surviving, because otherwise it's just firefighting every day, isn't it? You're just firefighting, and that's no life. That's not a life. Thanks, that is helpful. Always good to stop and take time to think about where you're at. You're welcome. Alana, hi Alana, can I have more information on the Energy Pod? Yes, if you go to the website smileyforlife.com/energy pod, it's a weekly class. It's 45 minutes. It's held online in a private Facebook group. You come along with your child. They type into the chat role to contribute and send emojis and faces. They draw, we do yoga, we do a bit of guided visualization and some Smiley coaching techniques. Every week we tackle a different energy. So we did creativity this week. We've done anger, embarrassment. Oh no, we haven't done embarrassment. Anger, excitement, worry, sadness, overwhelm. We've done 12 classes, I think, already. And it's just £10 a class. So it's really good fun. Oh, Nikki's put the link in there, smileyforlife.com energy pod. Thank you, Nikki. So yeah, if you go there, there's a whole list of frequently asked questions, and you can just book and pay online, and I will send you a link to come into the class and join us. Okay? Does anyone have any other questions to ask me about mental health, anxiety, worries? Oh, we've got Get Your Worries Out is coming at the end of June. We've got 3 spaces left on Get Your Worries Out. That's for 7 to 10-year-olds. It's a creative coaching workshop, which is held in, it's between Woking and Guildford actually. And it's the last one. It's the last one we're doing. So if you wanted to join us, you're welcome. Nikki, can you, if you're still online, can you put the link in for the workshops, for the Get Your Worries Out workshop, so people have got that as well? We really struggle to fill that one because obviously worried children are not very good at leaving their parents for a couple of hours. So, but parents, if you can trust us, if you leave them with us, once you're gone, they're actually fine. It's just the saying goodbye to you that's the hard bit. But once you've gone and they're with all the other worried little bears, they're absolutely fine, honestly. It's a bit like when you used to drop them off at nursery, do you remember? And they used to like scream and scream and scream. And as soon as you'd driven away, they'd be like, oh, sandpit, oh, and off they would go and play. Any other questions? Anyone got any questions? Just, I know, don't be overwhelmed. That's what I'm saying to you. Just think of one small thing that you can do tomorrow to change the way you think. One of the things that mums found really helpful when I ran my mums group last year was to have what we called morning silence. So to get up 10 minutes before your family and have your cup of tea and just watch the steam rise up out of it, put your feet on the ground, close your eyes, take some deep breaths and just set your intention for the day. And mums found actually when they were doing that and then they had a day where they didn't do it, that it did affect how their day went. But it's just about collecting yourself together and your thoughts and not jumping out of bed and someone going, "Ma'am," and then just sort of springing into it, isn't it? Any other questions before I go? No? Are we all good? If you're suffering with mental health, you know, don't make yourself wrong. Don't be ashamed. There's nothing wrong with you. Most of the time, anxiety is a really healthy brain working overtime to keep you safe. That's all. It's just about wanting to feel safe when it's anxiety. All right? Well, I hope you all have a lovely sleep tonight. Sleep tight, and I will be back to talk to you all really soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye. Bye.